All right, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem HaKakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim and the few Akwat who may be listening. This is your brother Batak Allah from the GMS camp here in Chicago, coming back at you with another lesson through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, and Lord willing, this will be an edifying lesson. All right, and earlier today I was looking at some clips on the internet, and there was one clip that basically the clip said Job, in the book of Job asked the Lord, why he was suffering and why he was going through the things he was going through. And if you read the book of Job in the 32nd chapter, Job is justifying himself basically in a woe is me spirit at that particular moment. And we know in the end that Job, proved the Lord right as far as the bet that the Lord made, saying that Job wouldn't turn his back and curse the Lord. He never did that. Job was going through it, and, he was in the flesh, and he questioned the Lord, and the Lord rebuked him for it, and the way that the Lord rebuked him, was in a way I got it pulled up. We're gonna read it later briefly, but and basically just explaining to Job that we're not on the same level. You're not in a position to question me type of way. And, these people in the comment section of the clip, who don't have no understanding, was talking shit basically. And, these could be Jakes, these could be Edomites. It doesn't matter. All right. If you're not in this truth, you're a heathen. So all these people are heathens that don't know the Lord and don't have understanding. All right. And that's why it's important to have men over you that's teaching you this truth, that have the Holy Spirit on them, man, because people, they just read stuff and they don't know what they're reading, and they come up with their own interpretations, or they don't know what the true answer is, because the Lord gave us all the answers that we need to receive salvation. All right. But without the proper teaching and without the Spirit, first and foremost, you're not going to understand those answers. You're not even going to know where to find them at. All right. But you got people who never even read the scriptures talking shit like this guy here, Parallel Arc 3837, whether you are Edomite or whoever the fuck you are. All right. We're going to answer your question. But the Lord ain't dealing with you, man. And if you're an Edomite or a heathen, you're going into slavery. And hey, man, it sucks to suck. All right. And if you a Jake, you better repent. But this was his response to what to that whole ordeal in the book of Job. It says, if God were worth his salt, as everyone upholds, he would be able to explain what he is doing to humans. His lack of ability to explain is a reflection of him not being omnipotent or omniscient. And the first thing is you don't understand the exchange that took place. You're talking about a lack of ability to explain. There is no lack of ability to explain. The explanation is given throughout the scriptures. In that particular instance, when he was speaking to Job, Job was out of line with the way that he was coming at the Lord, and he got rebuked for it. And the Lord basically told him, you're not on my level to be asking me questions like that, which is the same thing that and see, a lot of these dudes, they don't got fathers in their life, so they don't understand the Lord because of that. And Esau is a fucking devil for setting up the society in that fashion, because when you don't have a respect for your father, when you don't have a respect for men and male authority in general, you don't have any chance at understanding how the Lord operates, man. All right. And then that lack of understanding will cause you to be bitter and be offended. And now your ass is just wicked. All right. And that's the state that this world is in. All right. But fortunately, we ain't going to be here too much longer. The Lord is making a move on these devils. But we're going to get these precepts. All right. And Lord willing, it'll be edifying. But the title of this lesson is The Truth is Not Meant for Everyone to Understand. But Yahweh, I put the Lord here, but the Lord did give us the answers in the scriptures. All right. This is Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 5. It says, evil man understand not judgment, but they that seek Yahweh understand all things. All right. So when you don't have an understanding of what the Lord is doing, and that's not to say that, those of us that are in this truth have 100% understanding of the Lord, because none of us will ever have that level of understanding. The Lord is on a completely different level than any of us will ever be on. All right. But the things that we need to know for salvation were given to us. All right. And the answer to this particular question that was posed by Job and also by Esdras later in the book of Second Esdras is answered. But these niggas, they don't understand that because one, they don't read, and two, they don't, well, one, they don't got the Holy Spirit dealing with them. Two, they don't read. Three, they don't have a teacher to explain to them what they reading. So then they just get mad and act like a woman and start trying to point their finger at the Lord, which is the complete wrong thing to do, because that's who's in charge of your life, man. That's who owns you, all right? But these people will have no problem with an Edomite owning them. And that's why the Lord is coming back to destroy this place. This is Matthew 24 and verse 21. It says, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be." This is talking about the time of Jacob's trouble. In verse 22, and this is the point that I wanted. It says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." And the Apostle Tahar says it all the time. Right now, it's all about the elect. And that's what we're fighting to be a part of. All right. But at the end of the day, all of these things that are taking place on the earth is really for the elect's sake, for the elect to learn. All right. All you other people are just niggas in the background. All right. We're fighting to be at that number. But you niggas that's crying and complaining like this dude that I'm responding to, you just a background character, man. And if you're a heathen, you're a fucking slave, period. All right. And at the end of the day, you know, the Lord ain't dealing with everybody right now. That's just a fact. All right. And in the future, the Lord still ain't going to be dealing with everybody, but he will be dealing with all Israelites. All right. In the kingdom. But right now, the Lord is only dealing with the hopeful elect. And those of you that are not of that number, you're not going to understand it. And all of the stuff that you're going through, hey, man, it's just for you to go through it because it's for the elect's sake. All right. And that's another thing, too. These people don't understand that all the things that are taking place are judgments. All right. We've lived multiple lives. That's another thing that these people don't get. All right. The life that you live currently is a judgment that was passed. That was given unto you for your past life. And then you come back to the earth again to live again, and you live out your judgment from what you did in the past, man. And these niggas don't get that. That's why little kids die. That's why kids get terminal illnesses. That's why people get in car accidents, all that shit, man. All right, because the Lord passed a judgment on them, and they got to come down and live that sentence out, whether it be a good judgment or a bad judgment, all right? And bad meaning, you know, they got to deal with something bad happening to them, not that the Lord made a bad call. But, you know, you get put to death in a gruesome way or something like that. You know, you got to live with that if that's what you earned. But we're going to get to the answer because I just wanted to establish that first before we got the answer to this question. All right. But this is Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath Yahweh said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yahweh hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die." All right. So first of all, this is not like a talking snake. Right now, the Lord can make animals talk. That is accounted in the scriptures. But in this instance, that's not talking about that. This is a man speaking to Eve. All right. And this man has the same spirit that these fucking Edomites got on them today, man. All right. And it's the same thing playing out today in modern times with every single one of these women. All right. They're all Esau presents all of them with the so-called the fruit of the knowledge of the fruit from the tree in the midst of the garden. All right. The knowledge of good and evil, so to say. All right. Which is all these wicked ass philosophies, feminism, woman over the man, just the things that are contrary to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All these women get that presented to them, and most of them deal with it. Some of them don't, but most of them deal with it. All right. And this is the same thing that was happening then. Okay. The fruit is not an actual fruit. It's wicked philosophies. All right. But verse 4, it says verse 3, Salakia, "But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yahweh hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for Yahweh doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. All right, and the serpent didn't lie in this instance. All right, but it wasn't it's not an instantaneous thing. That's what was left out. See, when Eve partook of that fruit, all of this wickedness got brought into the world, and things started to degrade little by little, all the way up to the point that we're at today. All right, and really, what this is and Elder Yak always talks about this. This is a training course showing you what wickedness produces, showing you why the ways of the Lord are the way to go. All right, a school, so for lack of a better terms, that's what we're experiencing right now. All right, now, like I said, really, this is just for the elect's sake. All right, so all these other people, and we are the hopeful elect. We're not saying that we made it yet. We're hoping, we're fighting for that. But those of us that are doing this work, but for all of these other people that don't give a fuck and hate the Lord, they're just extras, man. They're just here playing out a role and are ultimately going to get destroyed and or put into captivity once Yahushua returns. All right, for those of you that's not in America, you'll be put into captivity if you don't get destroyed. For those of you that's in America, you're gonna catch a nuke and chariot fire, and you're gonna die here. All right, and then you'll come back into the kingdom. If you're a heathen, you'll be a slave. If you're an Israelite, you'll be born as an Israelite, and you'll be in the kingdom, but you'll have to bear the shame of being a wicked ass nigga on this side. All right, for however long the Lord decides to put that burden on you. But okay, so we just got the entrance of the wickedness into the earth. That's what we just covered right there in that Genesis. So now we're gonna go down to what the Lord told Job when Job was justifying himself, because hey, Job was getting jacked up, man. He was in the fire. All right, but the Lord knew that Job wasn't going to trade in his integrity and curse the Lord, but he had to prove a point. And really, not just to prove a point, because he made the bet with Satan, not just to prove a point to Satan, but for our learning here now. When we read these accounts, we gain knowledge from this. Reading the book of Job gives you an insight on how the Lord operates and how he thinks, in that particular, as it pertains to that particular circumstance, man. And all throughout the scriptures are, other accounts that show you how the Lord operates according to certain circumstances. But once again, these people wouldn't understand that because they don't have the Holy Spirit and they don't have the proper teachers to teach them these things. So since they don't have the understanding, they get offended like a woman or a child, and they want to start trying to justify themselves to the Lord and curse the Lord. And that's what's going to get them destroyed. But this is Job chapter 38 and verse 1. It says, when Yahweh answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, so this is after Job was justifying himself. You can read Job 32nd chapter to see that. All right. And it says, then Yahweh answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? All right. So, you're trying to justify yourself, but we don't have nowhere near the level of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Father has, man. And we're never going to be on that level. All right. So asking the Lord questioning the Lord and how he operates, even if it pertains to us as individuals, questioning the Lord on why do I deserve this and all that type of shit. You're not in a position to do that. And that's what this is saying. All right, verse 3, it says, gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. All right, so Job wanted to ask the Lord why he had to deal with what he had to deal with, and the Lord had said, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you tell me the answer to these questions, since you want to question me. All right, this verse 4, it says, where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. All right. So basically, the Lord is telling Job, I created all of this. I created you. I created everything you know. Tell me how I did all of these things, since you want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. All right. And if you keep reading in this 38th chapter, Other examples other questions will be asked of Job. When I did this, when I did that, how did I do this? How did I do that? And Job don't got the answer to those questions because we're not on that level to understand that. All right. But the Lord was basically letting Job know, you're not in a position to question me, so don't do it. All right. And at the end, Job humbled down, he repented, and the Lord increased him greater than he was before the trouble started in his life. All right. But once again, these niggas leave that part of the story out. They just want to talk about how Job was in his flesh momentarily and tried to question the Lord. And because the Lord didn't answer Job, the Lord is out of line for that. This is what these people are saying. But once again, you're not in a position. See, these niggas won't go to their boss at their job and ask them why I got to do this, why I got to do that. They're just going to do what he tells them. They're not going to question Esau when Esau says you got to pay taxes. They're not asking questions about that. They just do it. But when it comes to the Lord, you niggas want to get mad and you want to, oh, well, why me? Why this? Why that? No, you're not in a position to ask them questions, man. All right. And if the Lord was doing it for some maniacal reason, which he is not, but if he was, so the fuck what, nigga? You're not the Lord. So you just got to deal with it. All right. These people deal with this bullshit that Esau do, and they have a coconut smile and shut the fuck up about it. But when it comes to the Lord, people want to cry and complain. And the Lord still gave us the answers, even with that bullshit ass mentality that these people got. But because the Lord didn't put the spirit on them to understand it, they'll never get it. But we still going to give the answers here. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 6 and verse 56. It says, as for the other people. So this is Esdras talking to an angel. All right, asking the angel questions. But this is going to be the same sentiment that Job was having. But the question 1 was asked to an angel and 2 was asked in a proper way. All right. But so we're going to read. This says verse 56. It says, as for the other people, referring to the heathens, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing but like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. All right, so the Lord doesn't value heathens, man. You just niggas in the background. The Lord cares about the Israelites, you Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and the rest of us that stem from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were scattered abroad to the other nations, but on our father's side. All right, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on your father's side. But verse 57, it says, and now, O Yahweh, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and devour us. All right, and at that time, all right, I believe that Esdras was under the rule of Darius the Mede, if I'm not mistaken. But so the Medes and the Persians, they was in captivity under them at that particular time. All right. But, you fast forward today, we're in captivity under these Edomites. We're in the same situation. All right. Really, we're in a worse situation because at that time, we still knew who we were. Esdras knew he was an Israelite. And the Lord put the spirit on Darius the Mede to allow, Jake to go back to the land, to our land and build our land back up after it had been after the temple had been destroyed. All right. But like I said, we're in a worse position today because a vast majority, really, we was born not knowing who we were. There are a few exceptions. Brothers have kids and they're raised up in the proper way, but a vast majority of us that's in this truth, we grew up as being Babylonians first, being wicked ass niggas first, and then the Lord woke us up and gave us the opportunity to learn this knowledge and wisdom, and to, Lord willing, receive salvation. All right. But the vast majority of Jake don't know and grew up not knowing who we were and who the Lord was, the name of the Lord, all that. All right. But the Lord had mercy and has woken us up. The Wadi Bashim Yahushai. This is verse 58. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hand. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? So basically, Esdras is asking, you said that we, the Israelites, are your people, but we're in captivity right now, and heathens rule over us, and, we're going through it. But you said that we was your favorite. You said that we was yours. So why are these heathens above us, and how long are these heathens going to be over us? All right. the same sentiment. Job was asking from an individual standpoint because he was going through it, as an individual. But it's the same sentiment in the question. And why are we going through this if we're supposed to be your people? All right. Job's question, Job was pointing to the fact that he felt like he was righteous and didn't deserve to go through what he was going through. All right. But it's the same thing. This is so now we're going to jump down to chapter 7. This is 2 Esdras 7:1. And this is where the answer of the question that these people have is, all right. But and I'll say this too, these devils, they took this out of the scriptures, so-called said it was not canon, or I don't know the term that they use. I believe it says canon because this is in the Apocrypha, what I'm reading here. All right. There was a number of books that was removed from the scriptures. The original Bible, the King James 1611 Bible, had these books in them, but I forgot the name of the organization. They removed it, like the Bible, something Bible group. All right. So Salakia for that, because I forgot what the name of the group is. But they removed these specific books from the Bible, one because of historical ties. All right. Naming the name of historical figures. Like I had mentioned, Darius the Mede is mentioned by name. And multiple other historical figures are mentioned throughout those books that were removed. All right. But there are also other things that are mentioned. All right. In this book of 2nd Esdras, it talks about the last days. And this question is answered in this book, which is a heavy question. And a lot of Jakes, not understanding the answer to this is a huge stumbling block to a lot of these Jakes, man. And this devil understands that. So all of these things was taken out of the so-called canon, out of the King James Bible. All right. And labeled as not canon, which is false. All right. The Apocrypha is 100% a part of the scriptures. And you can cross-reference the Apocrypha with the scriptures to prove that. All right. But that's another lesson for another day. But back to this. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 7:1. It says, "And when I had made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me the angel which had been sent unto me the nights afore. And he said unto me, Up, Esdras, and hear the words that I am come to tell thee. And I say, Speak on, my power. Then said he unto me, The sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. But put the case, the entrance were narrow and like a river. Who then could go into the sea to look upon it and to rule it if he went not through the narrow, or how could he come into the broad?" Salakia. If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? All right. So this is a metaphor that's given. All right. Basically, the metaphor is that the sea would be a representation of the kingdom of heaven. All right. And the river, which is the entrance into the sea, is a representation of the world that we're living in now. All right. And filled with all of the captivity and all the things that we're going through as Israelites. And in order to get to the kingdom of heaven, we have to go through the river to get there. All right. So we have to go through all of this stuff to be on that level. Like it said earlier in Genesis, when you eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that you will have the knowledge of both good and evil. At that particular time, they had the knowledge of good, but they didn't have the knowledge of evil. They had to go through that. And we all have to go through that as Israelites, through this walk. That's what going through this walk and dealing with all this wicked ass shit that we dealing with is right now. All right. Being a God and on that level, not on the same level as the Father, but being a God, lowercase letters, you have to have the knowledge of good and evil. You have to be balanced. You have to know all things. You have to know how to abase, how to abound. You have to have experienced all levels of existence. All right. As it pertains to being a human, so to say. And, if we're going to be judging these people in the kingdom like the Lord said we were, in order to be a righteous judge, you would have to know what it's like to be dealing with what people that's in the flesh have to deal with. Because when these heathens are in the kingdom, they're going to be living in the flesh, man. They're going to be tributaries unto us after they serve their captivity, but they still going to be in the flesh. We're going to get celestial bodies. We're going to get exalted to the next level. But these heathens are just going to be humans still. All right. And in order for us to pass judgment on them correctly, we would have to know what that's like. See, this devil, he's a judge. He's the judge of the earth right now, at least as it pertains to the carnal means. And he's the one that's ruling the earth. And these devils have no understanding of what it means to be on the bottom at all. And you can see that in the way that they judge matters, man. Especially when it comes to the justice system, in particular here in America, but all over the earth. All right. These devils don't know what it's like to be down and fucked up like Jake is, but they'll pass judgment on you without that knowledge and speak as if they understand. And, oh, it's just this easy to do this or do that, when it's not really like that. All right. But the Lord is setting us up to where that's not how we're going to be, man. But in order to get to that level, you have to know what it's like to be fucked up. You have to know what it's like to be in captivity. You have to know what it's like to be on the bottom. You have to know what it's like to live when you're not following the instructions of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right. This is verse 5. It says, who then could go into the sea and look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? There is another thing. A city is builded and set upon a broad field and is full of all good things. That city is the kingdom of heaven. The entrance thereof is narrow and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water. And that represents this world. All right. And make no mistake, we live in a dangerous place, spiritually and physically. All right. But especially spiritually. All right. And a vast majority of these people are wicked to the core and spiritually dead. All right. And in order for us to, Lord willing, receive salvation, we got to overcome that, man. And then we'll receive all the good things if we, if the Lord blesses us with the spirit to be able to overcome all that stuff and all this shit that we see around here, man. This is verse 8. It says, and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could be one man. It's like it that there could but one man go there at once. All right. So, hey, we in this together. We got a brotherhood. We got Akim to lean on. But at the end of the day, your account is between you and the Lord, man. And another brother is not going to be able to get you onto a chariot and vice versa. All right. You have to seek out your own salvation with fear and trembling. This verse 9, it says, if this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive this inheritance? All right. So once again, we got to go through all aspects of life in order for us to be able to be on that level to receive the inheritance that we're going to receive. See, these devils, once again, they've been exalted by the Lord, once again, for the elect's sake, to show us the results of not doing things properly. All right. So you want to know why we got to go through the things we got to go through? Look how Esau is ruling the earth now. Esau is somebody that didn't have to go through all of this. These devils didn't have to go through all of this. The Lord set them up over us, man. Made sure everything went in their favor to get to this point that we at. Now, like I said, it's all for the elect's sake. It was for our learning. But at the end of the day, they didn't have to fucking go through all of the shit that we going through. They're going to go through what we're going through now, double, when we're in our glory. That's when they get to go through it. And then after that, it ain't going to be no more Edomites, man. They're going to get destroyed once they serve out their captivity. All right. This is verse 10. It says, and I said, it is so, it is so, Lord, Salakia. He was talking to the angel. And I said, it is so, Lord. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion. So this is what we have to go through as Israelites, man. To receive the greatest reward, man. We're going to have to go through it. The Lord is not just giving handouts out just because you're an Israelite or just because we're the Lord's chosen people. Because we're the Lord's chosen means we got to go through it the worst, man. Point blank. And we're going to get that. All right. But this is verse 11. It says, because for their sakes I made the world, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now is done. All right. So like we read earlier in Genesis, when they ate of that fruit of that tree and got the knowledge of wisdom, or Salaki, and got the knowledge of good and evil, all right, that was the catalyst to all of the events that took place after that, all right, and leading up all the way to today, all right, because this that we're reading happened even, a few thousand years ago. This account took place that we're reading. So wickedness has just been growing and growing and growing even since then. All right. But it all started, in the garden when Eve partook of the tree. But it all had to happen, man. All right. And the end of the story is that we're going to be in our glory and we're going to rule over all these people here and over the galaxy, man. That's the end of this story. But in order to get to that, we got to go through all of these things we're going through now so that we can be proper rulers and judges in that time. And we can fully understand, why the Lord made things the way he made them, why the Lord has rules that he has. That's what we're going through now. You learn why the law, statutes, and commandments are so important. First of all, once you're taught and have the understanding of them, but then once you see that and you go out into society and see what Esau tells niggas to do as opposed to what the Lord told us to do, you see the reason why the law, statutes, and commandments are important, man, and why you should be trying to keep them to the best of your ability. Oh, of course, we can't keep them 100% because we're not in rulership and these devils have defiled everything. All right. But at the end of the day, you understand why the Lord set up rules that he set up and why they need to be followed, man. But that has to really have that level of understanding. You have to go through the negative to get it. It's like with the stove. You can be told that the stove is hot over and over and over again, but you're never going to really understand why you shouldn't touch the stove until you touch it and you see what happens, man. And it's the same thing with this. This is verse 12. It says, "Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure and brought immortal fruit. If then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them." So you have to go through all the things that we're going through. But guess what? While we're going through these things, it changes us and puts us on another level, spiritually, mentally, and physically, over time while we're dealing with this stuff. All right. And that includes our past lives. Although we don't have knowledge of our past lives in our current lifetime, because, mentally that would not be a sustainable thing. People would be bugging out if they knew about their past lives in the flesh. But once we receive these new bodies and we receive that glory, all of that knowledge is going to be, we're going to have access to all of that, man. We're going to understand who we were in all our past lives. We're going to understand who all these people around us were in all the past lives, and etc. But we got to go through what we're going through now before we get to that level. And that's the answer to the question. See, all these niggas, they just want things to just be good because they want things to be good. And that's not how things really work. That's not how the Lord made things to work. Regardless of what you think as a human, that don't got shit to do with how the Lord thinks and how the Lord set everything up. All right. And really, that's an Edomite's mentality to have. Oh, well, why can't it just be like this? Why can't it just be like that? That's not the way it was meant to be, man. That's the answer. All right. And as far as you people that's heathens, this don't got nothing to do with you anyway, man. Live it up and enjoy yourself right now, because this miserable, death-filled world is all you motherfuckers gonna have, man. Because once we get our shit, y'all gonna be in line and you're gonna do what you're told to do. All right. And ironically, y'all are gonna enjoy that way more than you enjoy these so-called liberties that this devil gives you. But this is Hebrews 12:6. It says, "For whom Yahweh loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth." So, hey, yeah, the Lord has a higher standard for us as Israelites. And when we make mistakes, we pay for them, man. Not just as individuals, but as a nation as a whole. All right. Because guess what? All of the prophets of old, they were righteous men. They did what the Lord wanted them to do. That's why they're written in the scriptures. All right. And not to say that they was perfect, but at the end of the day, they was worthy to be counted as prophets. All right. And guess what? Every prophet in the scriptures went into captivity with all these wicked ass niggas, man. All of us went into captivity, not just the niggas that was wicked. All right. And whether you a man of the Lord or not, if you violate, the Lord is going to make you pay the price. If you're an Israelite, especially. All right. And men of the Lord, even more, because you know better. But that's because the Lord loves you. Once again, this verse 6, Hebrews 12:6, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, Yahweh dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? All right, so you wonder why these heathens can just go and be wicked and do whatever they want to do to us, and they don't have to pay the price right here and right now. Guess what? First of all, the Lord jacking these niggas up behind closed doors. You just don't know it. But outside of that, as far as on a grand scale, like how we went into captivity as a nation, these heathens are going to receive that chastisement. They're going to be punished. But the Lord is allowing them to grow more wicked and to stack their bill up, so to say. Because once Yahushua returns and the elect is delivered and the kingdom of heaven is established, the punishment that these fucking heathens and these devils are going to receive is going to be the worst captivity that ever existed, and it's going to be in righteousness. So the Lord is allowing these people to stack they bill up, man. They can run it up because they're going to have to pay for all of that shit in our kingdom. Okay? And like I said, individuals still get judged here, whether you a heathen or not, you know. Niggas die every day. All right? Like that nigga Rico said and Paid in Full. Niggas die every day, B. So judgment is happening still. But that mass scale judgment, that judgment that's going to make things even, that's not going to happen till we're in our kingdom. But the Lord is allowing these heathens to run their bill up so that when they get what they're going to get, ain't going to be no why do we have to deal with this? No, y'all ran it up. Now you got to pay the bill. All right. This is verse 8. It says, but if ye be without chastisement, so this is these heathens, but if ye be without chastisement, wherefore all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. So the Lord don't look at these heathens as his sons, man. These heathens are bastards to him. That's why they're not called into account for the things that they've done up to this point yet. But they will, though. You know, Yahushua is bringing that with him, man. This is verse 9. It says, furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? All right. So like I said, first of all, a vast majority of these niggas don't have a father. So they don't understand this. All right. But even if they don't have a physical father in they house, or that they grew up with to teach them these things, hey, when they deal with these Edomites and Esau rebukes they ass or corrects they ass, they do what he tell them to do. They get right, you know. So if you would get right for some fucking Edomite that so-called is your boss, how you sound doing that, but you wouldn't get right for the Lord, man. But that's why all these people are going to die, because they're not going to get right for the Lord. All right. Lord willing, we continue in this truth and we're counted worthy. And we can get the fuck up out of here, man, because these people are completely out of fucking line, man. But this verse 10, it says, for verily for a few days, it's like it, for they verily for a few days chasten us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. All right. So this is why we are going through all these things as individuals, why we've been going through all these things as a nation. All right. Because if you don't go through the chastisement of the Lord, then you can't partake in his holiness after the fact, man. All these niggas that don't, Salakia, because Jake is getting fucked up. Whether they get right or not, Jake is getting fucked up. All right. But all these heathens that don't have to go through the chastisement of the Lord, they're not going to be in rulership in the kingdom of heaven. Ain't going to be no more heathens running shit after Yahushua returns forever. All right. We the ones that's going through it. And that's why we're going to be the ones that's ruling in that kingdom. And Lord willing, you know, the hopeful elect will be of that number, and we can all make it on that first go round. All right. But even these 2/3 niggas are going to be above all heathens in the kingdom because they're going to be Israelites, man. All right. This verse 11, it says, now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. All right. And this is where niggas get offended at. All right. Because they can't just gird up and deal with it. All right. And it's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, you know, as the scriptures say, we're being punished less than our iniquities deserve. So, hey, man, once you know better and you have a certain level of understanding, you just got to be able to deal with it, man, and pray that the Lord have mercy. And that's what we do. That's what we've been doing. All right. But this verse 11, again, it says, now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them who are exercised thereby. And that's what we're hoping for, man. That's what we're hoping for. That's why we doing what we doing. That's why we doing this work. And that's why we pray to the Lord that he keeps the spirit on us and allows us to stay in this truth and endure unto the end, man, so that we can be partakers. All right. So with that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim, if you walk out, who may be listening. Lord willing, this was an edifying lesson. Until next time, shalom, wa abba.